All right, so the first thing that I'm going to put into the container is the liquids, just because it's easier for me. So I have my barley water, to which I've added just enough water to make 1½ cups, and I've also heated it because I made my barley up ahead of time. So I heated it to about 105 degrees. If you're lucky enough to have an instant read thermometer, you can check it that way. If not, very warm is fine. Okay, so we've got that water. Now what we're going to do is we're going to measure out our olive oil first. That'll make it easier for us when we go to measure out the molasses. So it was 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and I feel very fortunate. I was able to find this 2 tablespoon measuring spoon at my local kitchenware store. If you can find it, it's great. If not, just measure it out 2 tablespoons, one at a time, just like we always did in the past. Either way, it's just going to be fine. Now, because I'm measuring the molasses in the same spoon, it makes the molasses come out a lot easier. If you just put the molasses in a measuring spoon and try and pour it out, it's going to take forever. You're never going to get all of it. So I just kind of guess about, what 1 tablespoon is. It doesn't have to be exact, so don't worry. Just about 1 tablespoon is fine. Now I will go ahead and put in my 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Excellent. So now we have our liquid. Now on top of my liquids, I'm going to go ahead and put my barley in. Again, that was in the refrigerator, so I warmed it a little bit in the microwave and checked the temperature to make sure it wasn't too hot. The reason you don't want it too hot is because too hot is going to kill your yeast. But if it's not very warm, your bread won't rise very quickly either. So you kind of want to make sure that it's in that same range, make life a lot easier for you. So I went ahead and stirred that up a little bit. Now I'll just pour this whole container in. You can see, just as we measured it out before, not mixed or anything, because it'll get mixed during the mixing process. Don't worry. So put that in there, and what I like to do is just give that a good stir, just so that it kind of gets started a little bit. It's easier on your mixer, and you'll find that you have to stop and start a lot less trying to get everything put together here. So that's great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mix using our KitchenAid stand mixer. Now if you don't have a stand mixer, that's okay. You can do this by hand. It's a whole lot easier. Now, I'd like to say we get started here, but I left my dough hook on the other side of the room. So, here we have it. We've got our missing dough hook. Put this up here, and I always like to start it on low first. That way we don't have as much flour flying all over the place. Okay, so now when it's kind of coming together, I'd really like you to see what this looks like coming together here. You can see that, how it's kind of coming together. Now, it's kind of mixed, so I'll go ahead and turn it up. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to mix it for a few minutes here and see what happens. You can see how it's kind of just coming together. It's pulling away from the sides of the bowl nicely. So for right now, we're not going to add any more flour. Looks like we've got it pretty nailed for right this minute. So let's give it a few minutes. We're going to knead this with the mixer for about 12 minutes. It's got plenty of gluten in it already because you added some in, but this way it'll just be a nice, soft, moist very airy dough bread, which is exactly what you want. Now you can see the longer that it mixes, the stickier that it gets as the flour kind of absorbs the moisture a little bit. And it's going to start making I want you to see this. See how it's getting a lot stickier in the bowl? Okay, now at this point, what you want to do is I take about, say about a quarter of a cup of flour at a time, and I just kind of add a little bit in at a time. See what happens. Okay. And I just let that work its way in. And in a few minutes, what's going to happen with this particular dough, it's going to get all soft again. So at that time, I'll be standing by, and I'll have a little extra flour left over. And as soon as it starts sticking to the bottom and the sides again, we'll repeat the process. So we'll go ahead and just put a little bit more in now. Let it work its way through. This takes a little bit of patience, so don't be in a hurry. This is the important part. You don't want to just pour a bunch of flour in there all at once, because what will happen is it'll just make a big mess, and it won't mix up properly, and you might end up with too much flour in the mix, which will make it tough and hard to work with, and not at all light and fluffy like we want it to be. So let's go ahead and put a little more flour in. And I always can tell with this dough when it's just about where I want it, when it gets what I call the Pillsbury Doughboy effect. And you can kind of see what's going on here. It looks like it's got two Pillsbury dough arms and then the beater in the middle for the head. That's what you want. So keep an eye on it for a few minutes. You can see it's starting to break down again, so it needs a little bit more flour. Let's see, come on, Dad. Excellent, excellent, excellent. It looks really nice. So we're going to keep doing this. I'll check on it a couple more times if it starts sticking to the bowl again. I'll put in just a little bit more flour until we get back to the effect that we have here. And we'll check back with you in about 10 minutes.